Let's get right into it. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling one of the most devastating, complex, and frankly, defining geopolitical crises of our time, the Gaza plan and the rapidly shifting landscape of West Asia geopolitics. Look, this is a topic that's literally reshaping international relations, global economies, and countless lives. So my goal today is to cut through the noise and break it all down for you so you know exactly what's happening both on the ground and behind those closed diplomatic doors.
And it all really boils down to one massive question, which we're calling the day after dilemma. When the smoke finally clears and the immediate fighting stops, what exactly happens the day after? Who actually governs? Who pays to rebuild? That single, incredibly complex dilemma is what's keeping world leaders awake at night right now.
To make sense of this, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the day after dilemma, look at the roots of the current conflict, analyze the strategic impact on India, break down the global actors and major challenges, and wrap up with the future outlook and key takeaways.
Section 1. The Day After Dilemma.
The absolutely crucial concept you need to know here is the peace board. Think of this as the international blueprint for post-conflict governance and reconstruction in the Gaza Strip, and the urgency here cannot be overstated. Following the October 7 attacks and the massive Israeli military campaign, Gaza's infrastructure is utterly decimated. So right now, global powers are desperately negotiating on multiple fronts all at once. They're trying to secure a ceasefire, a hostage release, and, crucially, this elusive day-after governance plan.
Section 2. Roots of the current conflict.
Now, we all know this conflict stems from decades of unresolved territorial disputes and the lack of a sovereign Palestinian state. But the modern turning point? It's stark. If you look back to late 2023, the Middle East was actually on a pretty strong trajectory of normalization, mostly driven by the Abraham Accords. But the October 2023 Hamas attacks violently derailed that momentum. Then, the subsequent late 2023 ground invasion by Israel dragged the region right back into total warfare, which brings us to where we are in mid-2024. Frantic peace negotiations with diplomats desperately trying to put the pieces back together.
And talk about a crowded negotiating table. Just look at this web of stakeholders. On the ground, you've got Israel, Hamas, and the Palestinian Authority directly involved. Step back a bit, and you have essential regional mediators like Egypt and Qatar trying to keep the communication lines open. Then zoom out to the macro level, and you have global influencers like the US and Iran bringing their own massive strategic interest into the mix. Trying to find a solution that satisfies all three of these levels at the exact same time? It's literally a diplomatic tightrope walk.
Section 3. Strategic Impact on India.
Let's zoom out and look at the global shockwaves, specifically taking India as a prime case study. The first major casualty for India's strategic goals is what's being called the IMEC blockade. Remember, right before this escalated, India had just announced a monumental project, the India Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEC. This was supposed to completely bypass the Suez Canal and provide a massive counterweight to China's Belt and Road Initiative. But now, it's indefinitely delayed. The reason is simple but profound. The corridor relies on infrastructure cutting right through Arab nations, and those nations simply cannot normalize ties with Israel while this conflict is ongoing.
Then there's this number, 9 million. That's the staggering number of Indians currently living and working across West Asia. It's a vast diaspora, so any regional escalation doesn't just threaten their physical safety, which is paramount, it also directly threatens the massive economic remittances they send back home. And that's a huge factor in the global economy. And of course, we have to talk about energy security. While we haven't seen a catastrophic global oil shock just yet, the vulnerability is off the charts. Any expansion of this conflict, especially if it involves Iranian escalation, directly threatens the Strait of Hormuz. That is one of the most critical maritime choke points on the planet. Any disruption there and global oil supply chains are immediately in danger.
Section 4. Global Actors and Major Challenges.
So why is the peace board so completely gridlocked? Well, it comes down to diametrically opposed demands for post-war governance. On one side, the U.S. and regional goal is to install a reformed Palestinian Authority to govern Gaza. But on the exact opposite side, you have Israel's strict demand for total demilitarization and absolute Israeli security control. Neutrally speaking, these are two entirely different colliding visions for the future. Finding any kind of compromise between them is the absolute biggest hurdle right now.
And complicating all of this is a fundamental, total lack of trust, driven by very hard political red lines. For Hamas, sheer survival is viewed as a victory in itself. At the same time, incredibly complex domestic politics within Israel make a two-state solution highly unlikely in the short term. And the Arab states? They've drawn a firm line in the sand too. They are flat out refusing to fund the multi-billion-dollar reconstruction of Gaza unless they get a guaranteed, actionable pathway to Palestinian statehood. Beyond the negotiating table, there's the terrifying prospect of a multi-front regional war, driven by Iran's axis of resistance. We're already seeing this play out. Groups within this axis, like Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen, have been launching proxy attacks in solidarity with Gaza. This threat of regional spillover is so severe that it actually forced the U.S. to deploy aircraft carriers to the region purely to act as a military deterrent.
Section 5. Future Outlook and Key Takeaways. So, where is this actually heading? Because a clean, immediate diplomatic fix is basically impossible right now, the most likely reality looks like this. Step 1. A prolonged period of low-intensity conflict, followed eventually by Step 2, a gradual transition into some form of international peacekeeping or potentially an Arab-led administrative governance just to stabilize the region.
And this is where India actually holds a really fascinating, unique diplomatic advantage. On one hand, it maintains excellent strategic and economic ties with Israel. On the other, it simultaneously supports the Palestinian cause and a two-state solution. By expertly walking this tightrope, New Delhi has positioned itself as a highly trusted, impartial voice for the global South. It's one of the few powers that can actually speak with credibility to all sides.
All right, to lock all this in, let's hit the core drivers you absolutely need to remember from today. The day after dilemma, the IMEC blockade, the push for a two-state solution, the stalled Abraham Accords, Israel's demand for demilitarization, and Iran's axis of resistance. If you understand these terms, you understand the engine driving this entire geopolitical landscape.
Which leaves us with this final, pressing thought to conclude our explainer today. With regional trust absolutely shattered, infrastructure lying in ruins, and diplomatic demands completely at odds, who is ultimately going to step up and govern Gaza on the day after? It really is the ultimate question, and the answer is going to define the trajectory of the Middle East for generations to come. Thank you so much for joining me, and stay curious as we continue to watch this incredible global situation unfold.